It was 1979, a time of uncertainty. Great Britain was gripped by economic decline, social unrest, and disillusionment. But in the midst of this turmoil, a new leader emerged. A woman with unwavering convictions, ready to challenge the status quo and reshape the future of her country. Her name, Margaret Thatcher. Born in 1925, Margaret Hilda Roberts grew up in Grantham, a small market town in Lincolnshire. Her father, Alfred Roberts, was a grocer and a local politician, instilling in her a sense of discipline, self-reliance, and the belief that anyone, regardless of their background, could succeed if they worked hard enough. She excelled academically and later studied chemistry at Oxford University, where she became deeply involved in politics. Thatcher was not a traditional student. While many of her peers leaned to the left, Margaret was drawn to conservative ideals, particularly those championed by Winston Churchill. After completing her degree, Thatcher worked as a research chemist before studying law and becoming one of the few female barristers of her time. But it was politics that truly captured her imagination. In 1950, Thatcher entered politics, standing as a Conservative candidate in the general election. Though she lost the seat, she didn't give up. In 1959, after years of hard work and perseverance, she was elected as Member of Parliament for Finchley. Under the leadership of Edward Heath, Thatcher served as Secretary of State for Education and Science from 1970 to 1974. It was during this time that she earned the nickname the Milk Snatcher for her controversial decision to remove free school milk for children over the age of 7. It was a decision that would foreshadow the hard choices she would make later in her career. By the mid-1970s, Britain was in the grips of a severe economic crisis. Inflation was high, unemployment soared, and the nation was plagued by labor strikes, particularly from the coal miners and unions. The government was weak, indecisive, and unable to address the mounting problems. In 1975, Margaret Thatcher's political ambition came to the forefront. After losing the 1970 for general election, she challenged Edward Heath for the leadership of the Conservative Party. She believed that the country needed a leader who was willing to tackle Britain's problems head-on, and that leader was her. Against the odds, Thatcher won the leadership, becoming the first woman to lead a major British political party. In 1979, Britain had enough. The Conservative Party, under Thatcher's leadership, won the general election, and Margaret Thatcher became the Prime Minister. She had a clear vision, a free market economy, a reduction in government intervention, and a reassertion of British strength on the global stage. Thatcher's leadership would be tested in 1982 when Argentina, under the dictatorship of General Leopoldo Galtieri, invaded the Falkland Islands, a British territory in the South Atlantic. For many, it seemed like an opportunity for Thatcher to prove her mettle on the world stage. The Falklands War was a test of both Thatcher's resolve and Britain's military capabilities. After several weeks of intense fighting, British forces successfully reclaimed the islands. Thatcher's approval ratings soared, and she earned the admiration of her supporters for her determination. Thatcher's government wasn't without its controversies. One of her most unpopular policies was the introduction of the poll tax in 1989, which levied a flat-rate tax on all adults, regardless of income. It was seen as unfair and regressive, and it sparked widespread protests and unrest. As the 1990s approached, Thatcher's grip on power began to weaken. Within her own party, a growing number of MPs began to question her leadership. Her policies had made her a figure of both admiration and disdain, and the poll tax had cost her dearly. In November 1990, after a challenge to her leadership, Thatcher resigned as Prime Minister. She had ruled Britain for over a decade, but it was clear that her time had come to an end. After her resignation, Thatcher remained an influential figure on the global stage, speaking out on issues ranging from the European Union to global security. In 1992, she published her memoir, The Downing Street Years, and continued to advise future leaders. Margaret Thatcher passed away in 2013 at the age of 87. Her death was met with both tributes and protests, reflecting the deep divisions her legacy had created. She remains one of the most polarizing figures in British history, admired by many for her determination, but reviled by others for the social consequences of her policies.